start streaming. Okay, so basically we're just going to do mic 1 check, and then
Mic
you do
2 check.
and then your mic 3.
Okay, mic 3.
Mic 3 check.
Mic 3 check.
And your mic 4.
Mic 4 check.
Okay, and you're taking pictures, and I need to listen to the audio to make
Okay.
sure there's no doubling.
Yes, I know. Do you want this?
Yeah. Is your
It's still.
it hasn't gone live yet?
No. Hold on.
It's live on your page.
Hold on. There we go.
Okay, let's do it again. Mic 1 check.
Mic 2 check.
Mic 3 check.
Mic 4 check.
Okay, yeah, it sounds pretty good. I just have to make sure that there's no, sometimes there's doubling and your voice will sound like a robot if I don't diagnose it first before we start. Okay, so
Sounds good.
I'm going to moderate the cameras and you guys Angela will do all the conversing.
No, but I want you to converse too.
Throw in some funny, quick whips.
I want you to be Mitchell.
Quips.
And Felicity, whenever, if you feel like, hey, da-da-da-da, please feel free to chime in. Just because you don't have a mic doesn't mean you can't chime in. No, but you, even in the conversation, you were like, just like the little thoughts that you have. So, anyway, it doesn't matter.
Have no fear.
Do you want me to wear this or
no?
No, you don't have to wear it. Yeah, okay. You ready for me to go to your title screen?
Sure.
All right.
What's the plan? Are we live? Is that what the plan is?
We are live.
Should I? Let me post it on Facebook.
And then, okay, yeah. So this would be a good time to, if you're going to share it, share it.
Hey, y'all should watch us.
But we're sharing it from YouTube.
Sharing it from YouTube.
Well, no, we're gonna just share because you're doing it on Common Grounds too, aren't you?
Mm-mm. No, OBS only allows me to stream to one service.
Oh.
I can't stream to multiple services.
Okay. Well, I guess we're doing YouTube then.
So what's your YouTube? It's
Coach and
Thing off, so.
and then hopefully I'll be able to download it and then just post it later.
yeah. So there it is. There's the link. Boom. Put it on Facebook.
See, this is why I can't say
There you go. Share it. I'll share it to the group chat too. That makes it really easier. I shared the link, so. All right. All right, Miss Angela, you let me know the word to.
Yeah, no, we can go whenever you're ready.
You ready to go to your camera and introduce everybody?
That's fine.
Okay, here we go.
Hello. So I am super excited to be here today. It's a really unique situation with Common Ground podcast and a little perspective. We are in person in Biloxi, Mississippi, my hometown. I begrudgingly my hometown. I swore I'd run away and never come back, and now I've owned it and I love it. And I'm really excited to be here on Mitchell's podcast, talking about, on a crossover with Mitchell's podcast, talking about multiple sclerosis. So, a little perspective is the opportunity for humans who have certain conditions to be able to talk about their situations, whether they just simply be marginalized or have a disability, and be able to talk about their situation, use their own voice, and share their own stories. I have found that often those kinds of stories seem to get bastardized, and I'm thrilled to be able to talk to Annie Sanders, who is one of my literal absolute best friends. She knows all the behind the curtains. And then Ash Edwards also, who has long become one of my close friends and adoration. So we're going to talk about multiple sclerosis, and I'm just really excited to be able to share real awareness where we get to talk about the condition, the person, what we can do as a community to help, and then also how we can just be better friends and better humans. So thank you, Mitchell, for letting us be here.
So this is the first crossover that I've done, and it's with you. And we're doing Coach Ang Little Perspective through Common Ground Studio. It's crazy.
So it's not the first. I have been. It's the first official crossover, but I've interviewed guests with you before, and we do really well. So I am not a big fan of the long resume of a bio, and both of my guests could do just that. So instead, I'm just going to ask them to introduce themselves. So I'm going to start with you, Ash. Why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
So I'm Ash Edwards, 42 years old. My current profession is president and CEO of the Gulf Coast Business Council. So we represent the economic well-being of our region here. I've had a sort of an interesting life up until now. I grew up in Petal. I've been on the coast for about 20 years. I've worked in politics at the highest levels. I worked. I ran Hurricane Katrina recovery after Hurricane Katrina hit in 2005.
Yes.
So I've really sort of been ingrained in the coast culture. But more than anything else, just really appreciative of you having me here, and so honored to be a part of this.
Thank you. And then my boo, Annie. Tell us just a little bit about yourself. And please don't be shy, because Ash is shy, and I need you to be bold and just tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay,
please.
okay. I'll try. So, my name is Annie Sanders. I am, since we're giving out ages, I'm 34 years old.
Bitch.
And
nobody asked.
And I, of course, grew up on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, originally from Wiggins, of course, migrated to Long Beach, and that's where I graduated high school. Now I am the nonprofit owner and founder of Safe Haven Center for Domestic Violence. I have been incorporated since 2017, and we assist women and children in getting out of domestic violence situations. And of course, this is survivor-led as well. So that is kind of at the forefront of what I do right now. But of course, I do other things.
A million other
myriads. No.
things. No,
I'm tired all the time.
I love that, like, I have been blessed to have these humans come into my life, because, like, when we look at Mississippi, it's the bottom of everything, it's the top of the worst, and I grew up here, swore I would run away and never come back, ran all the way to New Orleans, to Loyola, and then came back with my tail between my legs, and then ended up really embracing a life here. And part of that life is these really strong, knowledgeable humans who may not be seen for the positions that they play, because MS, as for example, is it's a condition that people don't necessarily know a lot about, and or necessarily know that, like, you have, right? Like, I don't know that I would even know that Annie had it if we weren't so close, and I don't know that I would know that you had it, Ash, if it weren't for COVID. And again, my passion with A Little Perspective is just to bring real awareness, and real awareness means, like, let's cut the pity, let's cut the dramatics, and let's just figure out, like, what is the condition and how can we as a community help others who are struggling with this. So, Annie, what would you say, like, if someone said, like, what is MS? Like, what would you say?
I would say that, of course, the main thing is multiple sclerosis is an autoimmune disorder. It attacks the central nervous system, and you could jump in anytime, Ashley. Correct me, because it can be it can be difficult to explain to people. Because
I just
even
want to know
whenever
how you describe it.
I describe it as something that is silently debilitating.
Yeah.
And I say silent because, people see me and they can't see
Absolutely.
that I have a disability. Even something that's so simple as my doctor fought me to get a handicap placard for my car, one that is removable. And I was like, I'm in my early 30s. No, I'm not doing this. But even whenever I have to use it, I feel bad because I get out of my car and people don't know that I have a disability and that it is actually pretty difficult for me. Maybe that day I don't use it all the time, but I feel like I have to wear a sandwich board that says I actually have a disability. I know I don't look like it. So it's just,
I think that is a big part of like the difference in invisible and visible disabilities.
Yes.
And I feel like I toe the line with that, so I can only imagine what it feels like to not toe the line. I toe the line in that, like, I'm obviously short. I'm 4 foot tall. You cannot ignore that. But people underestimate the effect that has on my day to day. And so they think like, oh, it's an invisible disability, right? And so the same with MS or things like that, where if you are a productive person in society, because that's how we measure value, right? Is how productive you are in society, then therefore, like, you must not have like an actual disability. So as women, it's hard because we tend to mask more and we tend to just power on. But then I don't want to underestimate the validity it has on men as well, because as men, you're supposed to just be this strength and to hold down the fort and all that. So Ash, like, tell me about your experiences with masking or visibility versus invisibility, disability.
Yeah, I mean, so it's actually, I mean, I very much relate to that.
You have
to
a
that
very
idea.
nice voice. You have a very
I
nice
was going to try to bring it down a
voice.
little lower.
I like your voice. It works very well with that microphone.
I was gonna sing a little Keith Sweat.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just man,
no.
that voice sounds so good.
It's very
Baritone's coming out.
I love it. Hey, this is great. Keep sending the positive reinforcement this way. No, but I mean, I was diagnosed in 2008 with MS. It took me 12 years to tell people that I had it. And it's kind of the most incredible thing. I have had to come to terms over a long period of time with the idea that it's not something to be ashamed of. And as crazy as that sounds, I was scared to death to tell people I had it. Would they think that I was capable of doing less? Did they think that I was less competent? And to Annie's point, I think she made a great point there. I mean, it is oftentimes invisible until it's not.
Yeah.
But for us, it may be invisible to everyone else, but we always know. There's never a day that we wake up and don't understand that something is not right.
Something is not right.
Right.
My doctor actually said it really, really well one day. She said, every time we go in there, they ask you your pain level, and I always have a level. And one day I don't know what was up with her that day, but she just put her, I was like, but it's normal, it's like a 6 or so, I'm just telling her my pain level for the day, and she puts her pin down, she turns around, she's like, you do know the normal pain level is 0.
And I'm glad that she said that, because I was literally about what it's literally what I was
but
about
we
to
don't
say.
see it that way. I mean, our normal pain level is probably like sits between a 6 and a 7 or a 5 and a 7.
And if I'm honest, you are likely downgrading that level anyway.
Oh, no question.
Yes,
question.
Like knowing Annie for the human that she is, like, if she says it's a 7, it's probably like a 10. Like, like that.
It's fine. I mean, what am I gonna do? I mean, there's nothing that you can do. It's one of those things that there's no end to it. It's only gonna progress at some point. So, it's almost like you normalize it, and you. Really don't
was
have
that
any
a
other
wake
choice.
up moment for you though? Like hey, that like this isn't normal.
So it wasn't until I started asking like in-depth questions, and they are very thorough, my physician and their clinic. But it was one of those things that I decided, okay. So I went in there with this list of questions, and I just kept asking and asking. And the crazy thing is, nobody knows.
They didn't have answers.
They have answers for now, but there's no end in sight. So that's where it kind of hit me. It was like, okay, so I'm going to be dealing with this indefinitely. It is going to get worse
about it. Yeah.
I have to, okay, I guess give me the walker, give me the cane, give me whatever else you're gonna give me. I'll use it when I need it, and I've needed it before. So, it's just one of those things that you just you have to come to terms with, and it's not easy. I would say that it's easy because I have been hit with a multitude of other disabilities, but for that one in particular, it's almost like whenever you get down to it and see what it does attack and how it is just 100% like the myelin on your like the
your
protective
sheath,
coating of your nervous system is just deteriorating, and you can't repair it. So I hear a lot of.
Did you have that?
Change your mindset.
Yeah, I mean, well, I had a little bit of a different experience just from the standpoint that my mom has MS. My mom was diagnosed in 1996.
Okay.
At a time when MS was just starting to come into the mainstream, and unfortunately, having she was in a position where she was in her late 30s, and very active and working full time. Within 3 or 4 years period, she was bedridden.
Oh, wow.
And, so when I was diagnosed in 2008, I thought my life was over because I had seen what had happened to her. I'm now 14 years removed from it and have not, had a level of disability anywhere near what she had. But of course, when I was diagnosed in 2008, I just knew that my course of the disease was going to be exactly like my mom's.
Absolutely.
So, I will say I have grown into it over time. My perspective has changed a lot. But it was very scary for me early on. And, I went through a period of, when I first got I will tell you, I woke up one morning and had what they call paresthesia, which is just really pins and needles feelings, changes in hot and cold sensations in my legs. Within a week, I was dragging my foot, couldn't walk upstairs.
Wow.
And, it took a while to get to the diagnosis because there are a lot of tests, taking spinal fluid. I mean, all the things they do. Worst thing I've ever gone through, by the way. But
and isn't it typically women too?
It is typically women.
Yeah.
There are an alarming number of men, but it's more common in women.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily a genetic disease. They believe there's a genetic predisposition.
Right.
They're starting to really key in on Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is likely the cause of it. I mean, although they really don't know precisely, but there's been a lot of science now that's suggesting that a virus or something sort of activates what you're predisposed to. I am very fortunate to say that some of the worst flare-ups that I had were early in the disease, and and probably I was at an advantage with my physicians early on because my mom did have it. They were, I didn't have to go through this long
kind of had that thought, like,
train of all these things that it may or may not be.
Yeah.
They were pretty ready to diagnose me with it early on because I had the family history, which probably led me to getting treatment a lot sooner than I would have. And
which we will circle back to because you talked a little bit about.
Oh, it's horrible. Worst thing ever.
Experience, but we'll.
But I mean, with that said, I was very fortunate that I had good doctors early on that were able to aggressively treat it, and in many ways, I probably sort of stopped the progression in its tracks, which has allowed me now, 14 years later, to be in very good, very good state of health, relatively speaking, to the level of disability. Now, I've been through flare-ups. I have a relapsing remitting form of the disease. My mom has a primary progressive. So whereas I will go through relapses where I'll be down and up, she sort of had a constant decline. And I've had some scary ones, but on the same note, here I am today, and I can say that my level of total cumulative disability is still relatively low. So I've been very fortunate compared to a lot of people that have it.
What is the differentiation between the way that hers has ebb and flowed and the way that yours has?
So it's the interesting thing about it is a lot of times they'll say that a relapsing remitting form, which essentially is you go through these flare-ups, what that could mean for me. And my wife sitting here just off to my side. Right after we had gotten married, I had a flare up that was pretty severe, and had lots of problems with numbness in my feet and my hands. Almost couldn't write anymore because I just sort of lost the use of my fingers. Andy, I heard you mention earlier when we were sitting out in the front, the steroid treatments, which is like the worst thing on earth. But they give you these steroids to try to fight the inflammation that you're experiencing, because inflammation can cause a lot of the issues you see. And so I've had a few of those scary times. But in every case, I've not been in that situation where I didn't come back to a baseline. My mom, in contrast, she started experiencing disability, and it got progressively worse without her ever coming back to the baseline. Most people that are diagnosed, when they're first diagnosed, have a relapsing remitting form. So they're in a position where they will have a flare-up, and then they'll come back to a relative baseline close to where they were. As you get older and you've had the disease longer, a lot of times you start to see that it becomes more progressive. That's not always the case, but it's generally the case. So I think people like Annie and I probably keep our fingers crossed that we'll be some of the lucky ones that don't get to that point. But we don't have any way of knowing. I mean, there's no medical test where they can tell you what your progression is going to be.
Say, like, there's no like consistency.
No, there's nothing. Even if you start to, even with what we call RRMS, relapsing and remitting, you can feel like, okay, well, I'm not getting better. It's taking longer. Each flare-up may take a little bit longer for you to recover from. But then you feel like, all right, well, this is it. They're going to have to diagnose me with progressive. Here we go.
Oh, yeah.
And then you come back from it, and it's like, all right, well, I thought that was it. I'm glad it's not. But it still kind of leaves you in a state of, well, I don't know where this is going. I don't know if it will progress. Hopefully it doesn't, but whenever your flare-ups take a little bit longer to heal from, it can start to get a little bit more scary. It's like, all right, I know I'm going to go to the doctor and they're going to diagnose me with progressive, and that's it. But luckily, as of right now, I'm still relapsing and remitting.
I wish I had that sort of optimistic side, but I'm very much, when I have a flare up or a MS attack, well, this is it. This is it. Now I'll never get back to baseline.
So you have a family history.
Yeah, that's
right.
right.
I do not.
And I know that she's not mic'd or wanting to be on camera, and she probably doesn't even want to be here, to be honest with you. She's probably only here for you and me. But I would love to know from your point of view how that feels from your spouse's point of view. Because I know Annie more than I know you. I know you, but I know
Sure.
Annie. And I know that Annie is going to power through no matter. I'm not saying you won't, but I just know her. I know her. I know she's going to F it all. I'm doing it, And so I wonder, with your situation being genetic, essentially.
Right.
There's obviously an automatic, like, this is what my destiny is meant to be.
Sure.
And so I wonder, as the partner of someone, if she doesn't mind me putting her on the spot, to say, like, how do you push him through those tough moments where he's like, this is it. I'm just done. Like, it's the end, and I get it. Like, it's tiring. Shit's exhausting.
It is, yeah.
It is. But it's also exhausting for our people, too. So how do you, if you don't mind me asking,
I don't mind.
How do you, like, power through that? If you want to be on camera, scooch over here. If you don't, just want to just speak real loud.
I have a really loud
give her the
voice,
microphone.
so my husband will tell you that my voice carries everywhere.
There you go.
I'm sure he'll tell you that. It's something that it's just a part of our reality. It's not something that it happens. We go through those times. From a support perspective, I try to just be there for him and remind him. I think, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but the rate of progression that you are in this disease at like 5 years post-diagnosis, right? that's kind of, my understanding is that that's kind of what you can expect for. There we go.
Sorry, I fucked
No,
up.
you're okay. My understanding is that wherever you are 5 years post-diagnosis is somewhat what you can expect for the life and the progression of your disease. So we're fortunate. We've come so far beyond that. And when we have a flare-up, when he has a flare-up or an exacerbation, we just have to remember that. We're blessed in so many ways. We really are. And he's the strongest person I know. So he's going to come through it. Mentally, it's going to take him a minute to get there. You know, I've never really said this to you. So I'm sitting here going, oh my gosh, I've never really said this to him. Mentally, it's going to take him a minute to get there and remember that, okay, this is just a flare-up. The likelihood is that this is a flare-up. It's going to go back to baseline. We just have to be patient and work through it. You know, but he gets back there, and he always comes back. So.
Well, you know, I think it's difficult. I think it's difficult for the spouse of someone that has this disease. It's difficult for family members, for children, because you don't ever know what to expect day to day. And, you know, we don't have any sign that a flare-up is coming. Things can be going chipper. Everything in life is great, and then one morning you wake up and you just wonder, why can't I balance?
Your body is...
Yeah, why is half of my body numb? You know, and it happens to me a lot. I mean, we were in Florida a couple of weeks ago, and you know, I just kept feeling like I could not balance. And you know, I looked at her, and I just finally, she kept saying, "Is something wrong with you?" And I was blowing it off. And then I was walking up the steps to the condo that we were in, and I just said, I don't think I can get up these steps. I mean, it was. I was having a flare.
Yeah.
And you know, it's I will say as time has gone on,
Yeah.
it gets to the point where you take it more in stride. It's more like, I don't want to sort of underplay it, but you know, when you wake up and you realize I've caught a cold, and you just know that there's not a darn thing you can do about it other than just get through it. I've gotten to that point. I think when I was younger, and I would have a flare up, it was like, okay, my life has now ended, and I need to start planning for disability, and you know,
which you
I'm
won't
gonna,
even get
I'm gonna
approved for.
I'm gonna lose my job.
That's a whole podcast in and of itself.
I'm gonna lose my job, and I'm not gonna have any friends anymore, and I'm never gonna be able to leave the house again. But I don't have that reaction anymore, and thank God, because my mental health was, you know, I would say that the most difficult time for my mental health was right when I was diagnosed in 2008, and really during the pandemic. Because I was absolutely scared to death of what would happen to me if I caught COVID. You know, for folks like Annie and I that have this, well, you know, we know, you know, unlike a cancer patient, for example, that has an immune system that's just compromised from chemotherapy or what have you.
Something obvious.
Something obvious, right? We're more in a position where we know, you know, if we catch a virus that really hurts our system, our immune system will start attacking our nerves. And it will start eating our nerves away. I mean, think, you know, almost like electrical cords that you pull the insulation off of and touch together and they short out. Yeah. That's what a virus does. Every big flare-up I've ever had has come right after I've been sick with a virus. So, you know, I saw COVID as like, this is a death sentence for me. If I get COVID, the neurological problems that were already inherent in the coronavirus coupled with this condition. Yeah. And, you know, I don't think that I would, you know, I mean, I've probably never said this out loud before, but I think I became a hermit. I mean, I sort of buried myself in my house and shut all the doors. And it was, you know.
Safety.
And so, you know, and a lot of people would say, man, you're such an advocate for vaccines and all these things. Fear is a great motivator. And I was scared to death. I was really scared to death.
Fear coupled with reality. Right. Right? Like a realistic fear. And this was that, right? Yes. So that's where our introduction comes in. And I really don't even know how we became Facebook friends. But our connection via Facebook came from that time. Sure. It was such a tumultuous time for so many. And then I knew so many that were...
This is the most professional podcast you'll ever be on.
I love it.
When they talk about the man behind the camera.
I don't have the the man behind my camera when I'm filming my podcast internationally via Zoom, so I'll take it. But no, it's been wild because we've connected on a lot of layers, but
Sure.
but I think the initial connection was COVID related in that you saw a need for people to get vaccinated, and I felt the same simply because I had so many, nonetheless simply because I had so many immunocompromised people in my world, and I just saw the value in that, and so it's always been very interesting to me, and I'm going to pause. I'm going to put a pin in this because I want to ask Annie a question that I wanted to ask her a minute ago, was when it comes to being a woman with a condition that is invisible and with a condition that is really very reliant on self-reporting.
Yes.
How does that feel? Because there's a lot of, oh, are you really tired? Are you really sick? Or are you just lazy? And that stuff, like, makes me, like, really stabby and angry. And so I try not to, like, talk about it a lot, but I feel like we need to talk about it because how do you handle that? In a healthy way.
Okay, you should have said healthy first. So, I guess I can kind of go back to, I'm still trying to figure out how to handle that.
Yeah.
Especially being in, I guess, the community that we are in. So, I can't just say that I'm tired.
Yeah.
You know, I can't say that I'm tired. If I say that I'm tired, everybody's gonna, look at it the same way. Like, oh, okay, well, you just need sleep, or
no, I'm tired.
oh, well,
too,
I'm tired. We all tired. Wait, you got like 12 jobs. Of course you're tired. And it's but I tried to handle it in a way of I kind of teeter on the line of, do I say that I have a condition, or do I just not say anything and move on? Canceling on plans or anything like that, or if I have, right now I'm in the middle of a shingles flare. I get reoccurring shingles that, people don't understand. Like, that can be very debilitating. Yes. And it hurts like hell. And so
pause. What's shingles?
Shingles is basically what you can get if you've ever had the chicken pox. It's basically the virus that is.
So the way that I describe it,
yes,
it's just like the stress chicken pox
for the
immunocompromised.
For the immunocompromised,
right. So
and partially
it's
the elderly.
like if you get super stressed out and you're immunocompromised, you're gonna get the shingles, and it's like chicken pox times hell.
It is. My first flare was really bad. It was really bad, but now they kind of come in like small spurts. But it's just one of those things. It's like, are you okay? And it's like, yeah, I'm fine. It's going to be fine. Everything's fine. Of course I'm okay. I don't know if you've ever experienced the hug.
I have, yes. Yeah.
So the hug, it's called an MS hug. It feels like, the only way I can describe it is if a snake decided to wrap around your abdomen and just squeeze. And there's nothing you can do to get out of it, but just let it go. There's no...
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So, is it like... So, for me, anxiety, I feel it in my chest.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, if it's bad, like, I feel it, like, all around.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is it kind of like that, where it feels like it's suffocating you?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
It feels like you're struggling to breathe.
Yes.
And the first time I ever experienced it, I'm not a hypochondriac, y'all, I swear. The first time I ever experienced it, I was like, I gotta go to the ER. I'm having a heart attack. And I think my heart attack is in my stomach.
Let me tell you something. She wouldn't go to the ER if she needed to, so she was like,
I was like, I gotta get to the ER because I have no idea what's going on. I can't breathe, and it was the weirdest feeling. And then, of course, as I'm on my way to the ER, I messaged my physician and I'm a patient at Ochsner, of course. I don't even know if I say that right, but they're actually really good about getting back to you pretty quickly. And I'm getting checked in, and I'm sitting in the waiting room, and I'm just like this in the chair because you can't straighten up. You know, it's very hard. And she's like, "Oh, that's an MS hug. You're fine." And of course, I still got checked out, but of course, it subsided after about maybe a half an hour or so. But it was still something that it was the strangest feeling, and it happens to me quite often, depending on, I guess, I want to say heat kind of pushes my MS hugs. There are different weather conditions that could just cause a flare up, and that little weird storm last night, I'm telling you right now, I'm not kidding, my hips and my ankles felt like they were on fire, and I was like, wait, I've never experienced this one before. It's like, what is this?
And I'll tell you what it was. And I don't have MS. I don't. But I'm like, the weather messes me up. I was about to say a bad word. It messes me up real bad. And if it shifts like that, and last night was a really big shift. Last night was a big cold front and a big.
Yeah.
Well, you know, you love that weather shit.
I
should let you explain this. But I want to explain it from my own point of view.
I'd love to.
Before I let you explain it from the actual point of view. So my point of view is this. So I am an earth child, and I love grounding, and I'm like super connected. And so this is my explanation. Last night was a big shift, y'all. Last night was it was our last like big warm shift and cold shift. And we live on the coast in Mississippi. We live on the Gulf Coast of Mexico. And so our shifts are big. And which, of course, because everything I do is fucking big. I can't just, like, I just said that for it. I'm trying not to say that for it on Mitchell's podcast.
I don't think the FCCC minds on.
I'm trying to be polite on Mitchell's podcast.
It's not my podcast.
It is your podcast.
This podcast is branded as a little perspective. It says it on the screen.
But the actual branding says. Anyway,
This is a little perspective podcast.
That's me.
From Common Ground Studio.
Nonetheless, I think it is from Common Ground Studios. So nonetheless, I think that last night was huge. But I would love, and I don't mean to, there's so much that you said that was so good. And so I don't mean to discount what you said by asking this question. My question to you, Annie, is as a woman with a condition that is autoimmune, essentially, there is a lot of like, oh, you're using it, it's pseudo, you don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of that thought. And the thing is that, like, they don't know you. So before you before you or Annie, I would love for you to talk about that, because I know women with fibromyalgia, I know women with different conditions that are in that realm, and I get it. Like, I understand the struggle of humanity with, I've done XYZ to get to where I am, and so therefore everyone else has to earn their keep. But I also understand disability, and so tell me a little bit about that.
So sometimes whenever you decide to say, okay, well, maybe this person can understand a disability and why someone operates the way that they do. But then you start to explain it to them, and the first thing they say is, well, you have to change your mindset. You have to change the way you're thinking. You have to change, maybe you could try, I don't know, essential oils, or maybe you could do this or that. And it's like, I don't know what place they're coming from. And I feel like, okay, well, maybe they're just trying to offer some sort of alternative to help, or they're just trying to say, get over it. It's not that bad.
Have you ever had someone say, well, if you have this problem, why don't you just do something about it?
Yes. Like, I am.
Yeah.
Ash, give us an example of that.
Oh, look, I just listening to what she's saying about the essential oils. I mean, people say, well, I read an article that said, if you will just take more vitamin D, it'll cure MS.
It'll cure MS.
Yes,
You know,
everybody has a cure to MS. Everyone.
It's amazing, and I'm just like, well, look, I'll be happy to, I take vitamin D now to a level that it ought to be toxic, and it hasn't cured it yet. But it's amazing to think that, and you want to give people the credit for they're concerned about you, right? So you don't want to
They
react.
mean well.
They mean well. You don't want to react badly. No. But on the same note, you want to say, don't you think I'm doing everything I can? Do you think I want to live this way?
Yeah.
Do you think I want to go through this?
Do you take any vitamins that do help?
I don't know that. I guess it's one of those things where I'm doing relatively well, and I take a lot of vitamins every day. So, is there a sort of cause and effect there? I can't tell you scientifically, but, for everything that sort of the leading literature says to do, I try to do. Maybe other than eat really well, because I probably still pig out a little bit too much.
You still eat well though. Here's the thing: if I was to look at 2 poster children, right, for MS, it would be y'all. Essentially, realistic poster. Yeah. If I were to look at 2 realistic poster children for MS, it would literally be the 2 of you. You are both grown-ass adults who, live their lives, but you're also honestly very healthy.
Yeah.
And so you are. I know both of you personally. You are both very, very healthy. And I love this conversation so much. I love it. I love that Mitchell asked, is there anything that you can take? Is there anything?
I take a lot of vitamins.
I take a ton of vitamins.
Just to function.
I'm just going to go on the opposite side. I don't take a single thing.
Really? Wow.
I don't. But that also goes to the whole MS platform. It's such a snowflakey disease to where...
But it's also consistent, right? So it's there's not been any show that vitamin D makes a difference.
I mean, I probably would be a lot better if I took vitamins. I'm going to need to get a list from Mitchell and also from Ash before I leave.
Oh, I can tell you right now.
They're expensive.
Vitamin B, lady.
I'm literally a
Vitamin B all day.
What's a bachelor's?
Oh, look, I've done the B12 shots. I do the super high dose D. I mean, one of the great things. So Felicity, she puts my vitamins and medicines together every day. And I always say, I hope nobody ever sees me taking these because I have a pile of stuff.
I do too.
That I take every day.
I take a handful.
How do you like that B12 shot?
I'll tell you,
You feeling good afterwards?
I like the B12, and I do a lot of B12. I do a lot more B12 than what the FDA recommends. Yeah.
Well, because that
Does it put you in a good mood?
It does put me in a good mood.
It's energizing.
Yeah.
It's a mood enhancer.
Mm-hmm.
I like the B12.
What is your experience with B12, sir?
No, if you take an overabundance of vitamin B, it boosts your serotonin, boosts all kinds of stuff. It just puts you in a good mood. It's a mood enhancer.
Yeah, it is. It can also be an anxiety derivative if you're not careful.
Well, I already got enough of that.
Okay, all right. I want to make sure that I'm doing this show justice and talking about the condition. So tell me about how you came to be diagnosed, Annie, how you were da-da-da-da.
Okay, so I want to say back in 2015, I gotten connected with a neurologist because I was having really bad headaches or migraines or what have you, and he was trying to figure out, did I go out of you?
No, you good.
It's just Mitchell.
You good. You good. I'm OCD. I'm OCD.
Going.
It's gotta be in the middle.
I'm sorry, I have
You're
to
good.
acknowledge the cameraman, I guess.
That's what I'm here for.
You.
I told you before we started, I'm the camera operator tonight.
So I was going to this physician, and we were trying to figure out what was the issue with my migraines and all this other stuff. And one day, I wake up and half of my body is numb, and I kind of ignored it, and I was like, I must have slept on my side wrong. It can't be anything
Pinched a
crazy.
nerve.
Pinched a nerve.
Right.
I slept with the dog, so she probably had me like a pretzel. Any of those things were more than likely the reason why. So as I'm driving, I don't remember where I was going to, but I'm driving in the direction of Biloxi, and I realized that it was getting worse. That I was literally losing feeling completely.
wow.
It wasn't pins and needles anymore. I'm literally losing feeling, and I'm thinking, I'm having a stroke. I'm having a stroke. Okay.
That's
so
not how strokes work,
I go
but
straight.
Okay.
And
On your right side? Was it on your right
it
side?
was actually my left.
On your left,
It was
okay.
on my left
but it was
side.
still like on the side.
On my
so
side. I look
down.
in the mirror and I saw that my face was
Ah.
like drooping. And I was like, yeah, that's it. I'm having a stroke. I'm toast.
But you
So-
realize though, if you were having a stroke, I'm just saying this for the audience.
Listen.
If you were having a stroke, you would have been dead.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Okay, I'm just saying. I just want the audience to know that. Like, that's not
that's not
actually a realistic explanation for what was going on.
Don't listen to me. I'm like, do I taste pennies?
No,
is it
bitch,
bad?
no.
Is my mouth dry?
No.
I don't know the symptoms.
You don't die slowly.
But
But okay, go ahead.
So I just made the decision to drive myself straight to the emergency room, and I was like, hey, this is what's going on. And so they decided to do my physician, who he was actually the attending neurologist that night, luckily. So he was like, we need to do a spinal tap. So radiology took me in.
Oh,
they did a spinal
wow.
tap that night. No. Excuse me. They did an MRI that night. He did a rush
okay,
MRI.
Okay.
So then he says, one or two things are going on. You either are having a silent stroke. I don't think it was too silent because, I mean, half of my body was going freaking numb. I was like, either it is, he said, either it's a stroke or a silent stroke, or you have MS. And the first thing I thought was, that's it? That you have no other options for me. Those are the only two. He said, that's it. So then that's whenever he ordered the spinal tap. And it took a few days to get that back because they sent it out to like Virginia or somewhere to get the results. And he calls me and he was like, yeah, so you have MS. So I'm going to put you on this drug. And I was just like, wait, hold on, excuse me. I have what? The only thing I ever knew about MS was like Montel Williams got caught for smoking weed, and he had that was the only
I didn't even know about this.
What?
I was a big Montel Williams fan.
Oh, well.
Yeah, so Montel had MS.
Yes.
That was the person I identified with. I wanted to read everything about Montel.
No, I knew he had MS, but I didn't know.
I didn't know what it was. I didn't know why it was. I just remember, like,
What's
man.
the drug connection?
The drug connection with
Montel. You were like, oh,
he had gotten in trouble or something. Like, I guess he got in trouble for having marijuana. Excuse me, I said weed before. He got in trouble, or he got like caught with it somehow by the LAPD. I can't remember. Don't get me lying about the story.
No,
I could probably
it's fine.
Google it.
No.
But that's the only thing. And I remember his defense was that he has MS,
Correct.
and
That
that is what
makes
he
sense.
uses
Okay.
to medicate.
Okay.
And so that was my only exposure to MS.
That
I
makes
had
sense,
no
yeah.
idea what it was. So my doctor kind of just threw me into this loop of where you're going to start taking these injections 3 times a week. It's going to feel like a bee sting. It's going to make you feel like you have the flu. And I was just like, okay. And so now I have to figure out how I'm going to pay for it. My insurance only covered, like $900 of it per month. So I still had to come out of pocket, $300 to $400
Well, you have to
a month.
first figure out, like, if this is what you want to do.
I didn't have time.
Yeah.
I seriously had no time. I'm listening to these people because I don't know what this is. I have no idea what this is. So I had a really bad flare a week after I started Copaxone.
Wow.
And I ended up in the hospital for 7 days, I want to say it was.
And that's a treatment for MS.
Copaxone, yes, it is an injection you take 3 times a week. And they were right. It makes you feel like you have the flu. It makes you feel like it's a bee sting. You could, it's.
Is it a starter MS?
Yeah, it's one of the first.
Yeah, it's one of the first ones that
one
they
of the
were
first
trying to put you
lines of
on.
defense, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, and so
I've taken that
that's
also.
I was on it for like a year and a half. I was like,
Annie's experience
terrible.
wasn't great. What was your experience?
Not great. I feel an incredible kinship hearing her story there because mine was very, very similar. Had half of my body felt numb, sort of drooping face. Mine was on my right side, and within a week, kind of this blur of MRIs and them putting a needle in my spinal cord or my spinal column to pull fluid out. They tell me I have MS, and by the time that the first week was over, I've got a nurse coming to my house to teach me how to give myself intramuscular injections into my leg, and I was taking a therapy called Avonex, which was one of the early ones.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example of what this. And I don't want to get too scientific, but when you get sick, when you have the flu, right? The flu is not what makes you feel so horrible. What makes you feel so horrible is your body releasing interferons. And interferons have lots of functions in your body. One of the things they do is shut down the blood-brain barrier. And part of our problem is our immune system crosses our blood-brain barrier and thinks that our spinal cord and our brain is a foreign invader, and so it attacks it.
It attacks it.
So one of the ways that you do that is that they want to mimic you getting the flu so that your body will protect itself from these foreign invaders.
It'll develop those.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
So I would inject this. The Avonex was once a week, intramuscular, and I would put it into my leg once a week on Sunday evenings.
What's intramuscular?
So it's a long needle that has to go deep into the muscle to absorb. So Copaxone, which I was on later, is under your skin.
Just under the muscle. Like
Yeah,
right
you put it under your skin. This one you had to stick into my muscle. So I was giving myself shots in my muscles every week. And for the first 48 hours, you feel like, I was running a fever of 102 degrees, body aches, malaise like you have the flu. And, so the big discussion at that time was, well, what day of the week are you going to give yourself your shot? And a lot of people would do it like on Friday evening so they could have the weekend to feel really horrible. Well, I made the decision, I don't want to feel really horrible all weekend because that's the only time off I have. So I'm going to give it to myself on Sunday because Mondays suck anyway.
Right.
So I might as well just go ahead and compound that.
Yes.
And I took the Avonex for 3 years.
Good.
And so for 3 years, I spent 3 days a week feeling like I couldn't get out of bed.
Wow.
But I still had to, right?
Yeah.
And
you couldn't use it as an excuse.
No, not at all. And in fact, and I will tell you, in those days, nobody knew I had it. I was very scared that people would think that my capability was less. So my response to being diagnosed with MS is, I'm going to keep this to myself. I don't want anyone to think that there's a reason that I can't perform or I can't do the job, which was stupid.
No, it's not
But
stupid. No, it's not. I'm sorry. It's
go
not.
ahead.
It's not stupid. And I apologize to Mitchell, because I'm always like hands everywhere, fuck it all, and Mitchell's like everything needs to be precise. But it's not stupid because it is human emotions are valid.
Well, I'm glad you said that because it was. Look, I love triumphant stories of I got diagnosed with this incurable disease and I owned it, but I can't tell that story because I got diagnosed with this incurable disease and I was a mess. I probably did everything the wrong way. I didn't want to ask for help. I didn't want anyone to know what I was going through. And so I swallowed it all in. And it's taken me a long time to kind of mature past that. And, it's a caution that you have. Yeah. Because, right or wrong, people will use it against you.
They will.
Right? They will. People will use it against you.
Will.
There are a lot of rotten people around.
Yes.
There's a lot of great people, but there are a lot of rotten people around, and they will use anything against you they possibly can. So I wasn't going to hand them ammunition to say, I've got this problem, I'm walking in the office on Monday morning and I'm operating at 20%. Mm-hmm. I just didn't want to give that to them. And so you hide it, and which makes it worse, right? Yeah. It makes it worse.
But not all the time, because I had an employer. Of course, I'm not going to say it because... Anyway, had an employer. It was
if this was my podcast,
I would have said it by now. You already know.
We've been lining them up.
We don't hold back.
Call names.
Start calling names first, last. So I had an employer, and actually it was suggested that I get put on FMLA. So that, of course, the MS clinic decided to, map out, how those FMLA forms are. They're a mile long. And they said, okay. So my physician decided that basically 4 to 5 days out of a month, not including appointments, I needed time to recuperate from my debilitating disease. Mm-hmm. I took a day. I decided one of those days, I'm going to take it. And the backlash.
Know what? I'm going to tell you right now that it took everything she had for her to take that one
day. And so of course, like my appointments, she said, she had in there like those appointments, she's not missing those because she had realized that I started to become non-compliant and not making my appointments because I'm working. I don't have time to go to my appointments.
It's an all-day thing.
It's an all-day thing because
tell us a little more about like what is so MS is a
neurological.
Yes, it's neurological.
Yeah. And
look, we're an hour into this podcast. You can't just start defining.
When you get into the brain, right? Like it's complicated as hell, right?
Yeah.
And then you have humans who think that you're trying to get one up on them, which is crazy.
Well, I mean, think of, the amazing thing about it, and it's kind of, I don't know, I guess I've come to terms with it, but your body's eating itself.
It is attacking.
I mean, it's like you don't. There's no foreign invader that's hurting you.
That's literally what autoimmune means,
yes,
right?
Right.
Like that's literally what
Yes, your body is attacking itself. It just has no idea. It's like, wait, there's something foreign going on. It's like, no, it's not. It's just like, stop. Don't do that.
Imagine the cognitive dissonance of realizing, like, I've always been someone who's in control of my body, my emotions, my movements, and I can't make myself, whatever's in me, stop eating my nerves.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable. Like, why can I stop this?
And the neurological side of it, and I could be wrong, and if I am, I need you to correct me, but the neurological side of it is people don't realize that we have lesions on our brain.
Yes.
It's literal.
Like, it
so
is
when people ask me...
Yeah, you can see them. Yeah, you can see them on the MRI.
Ask me what it means, that's the only way I can describe it. I don't have a personal experience with it, so I say it is lesions on the brain that cause your body to just malfunction.
Yeah, I have them on my spinal cord too.
Me too.
So I've got the spinal cord lesions, which usually is worse.
It is.
But I've been okay. It's interesting. I'll tell this story real quickly. So it was not long after Felicity and I got married, and I had a really bad flare up, and we went to the neurologist. I go to Ochsner also, and I had a span of 5 or 6 years with really no flare ups. Then I had a really bad one. And the doctor was like, look, since you've gone so long without a flare-up, I just want to redo everything that we would have done early on to confirm that you have MS and that there's not something else going on. Because you've actually done very well for as long as you've had it. And so I go through the MRIs and all this kind of stuff. And we're sitting in the doctor's office together. And she's like, no, you've definitely got MS because your MRI is lighting up like a Christmas tree. And I mean, so it's actually amazing. I have an incredible lesion load for the level of disability I have. I have got lesions and spots all over my brain and spinal cord. Tons of them.
Will you talk more about like what lesions are? Like,
so
what does that mean?
Basically, if you had a little termite eating the myelin, which is the protective sheath off of your brain and your nerves, that's what you see. It looks like a termite has eaten away parts of your brain and spinal cord, and that's what they look like. So they glow on the MRI. Everything is sort of gray on the MRI, and then you see these bright white spots. These bright white spots. And so, it's always fun when they show you your MRIs, and you're like, oh, look at all these great lesions I have. And the amazing thing about it is, there's no direct correlation between the number of lesions you have and the level of disability you have. Because some of them are on the surface, some of them go deeper. But
the spinal ones, though,
they can be bad.
They could be bad.
And I actually started with spinal lesions. They didn't see many on my brain. They saw, they saw some spots on the brain. They were like, well, this might be lesions, but we see some definite ones on your cervical spinal cord. And now when I go, they're like, oh wow, these are just all over the place.
Just look at this.
And I'm like, well, that's great. I'm so glad that I'm able to contribute to the
And look at
research side of it.
well, my first physician was actually like a research doctor, and I felt very much like a guinea pig for a while because it was like he had less interest in treating me and much more interest in talking about how, my mom. He's like, oh, this is a great case for me to have. And I was just like, well, I don't want to be a teaching aid here. I want to figure out.
It's not uncommon though. Like so, as a person with dwarfism, so being in I say so over and over again because I'm trying to figure out where to start this conversation to make it the most streamlined. But I'm a person with dwarfism. I am less than 4 foot tall as a female. My pediatrician is my kid's pediatrician because he was fresh out of medical school and eager and willing to learn and da. And so that was like great because it was nice to have someone who was willing to be along for the journey. But the lack of knowledge is still an issue. Now, not with Dr. McCrary. I'm 40. He's literally been doing this for 40 years. So he has that experience. But to like say, hey you who doesn't have that experience, I'm trusting you with my medical, that's big time.
Yeah. I mean, it's great when they describe it. It's like, oh, this MRI is fascinating.
They do. They get excited about it.
That's not exciting.
No.
So I'm going to tell you.
That's not exciting. I'm sorry, it's not.
So I just want to throw this out there because I have a multitude of, what do you call it?
Experiences?
No. Issues.
Okay.
Diagnosis. Okay, I'm just reel me back in. Mitchell, what are you doing? Okay,
drinking delicious wine. What are you doing?
This is great wine, by the way.
Can we take a moment to thank Ash for bringing all this awesome
Felicity for serving
and Felicity?
it.
Yes, please, thank you, Ash and Felicity.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
What you were saying?
Share with friends.
It was like one's like 2 years old, another one's 8 years old.
Yeah. Well, so we brought some of our favorite wines tonight to make the.
Ash is a sommelier, so he's like legit.
You messed up, Ash. You brought wine, and Angela's only allowed to have one glass.
Oh God, I'm giving her like 4.
You messed up, Felicity.
That was like the gremlin.
Felicity
It was
messed
after
up.
midnight, not better.
Sorry, Angela's mom.
Might as well keep feeding it.
There are more bottles still to go.
We'll take care of it. Oh my goodness.
It's good stuff.
Oh.
All right, so Annie, you were saying you have issues, diagnoses?
Yes. So one of the things about my conditions. Thank you, Mitchell.
See, look at that producer. Look at
that. Is even with my cervical spinal fluids, they wanted to test it again. So I have no idea how many MRIs I've had of my brain, how many I've had of my spine. And so whenever, every time they do the MRI of the spine, sometimes they will want to do the spinal tap and to extract the fluids. So they have gotten to a point to where I am 100% a guinea pig.
Yeah.
And they even can see that it looks like in my cervical spinal fluids that it looks like I have bacterial meningitis, but I don't.
Wow.
So they are like my infectious diseases doctor. She frowns at me every time I walk around. She's like, because they can't figure out what's causing it. And it's like, no, I don't have it. I would be quite literally like in ICU in a bubble, and this has been going on now for almost 3 years because we're in 2022. So I have quite literally become a guinea pig, and I also have the way that they started to actually look at my spinal is because I have Chiari, and so they found that from my brain MRI, decided to keep going. That's how they found my spinal lesions.
Fuck is Chiari?
Chiari Malformation. It's basically where the cerebrum, the bottom portion of my brain goes into my spinal column at the very top of it.
Yeah. Cerebrum.
So anyway, that's what that is. But
no.
What?
I'm sorry. Keep going.
We're talking about MS.
So here's the thing. Here's where my comes in, because with achondroplasia dwarfism, there can be a natural constriction.
Yeah.
And so that's just where my I'm like, ooh, cerebral fluid. Like anything that has to do with cerebral fluid piques my interest, because with achondroplasia dwarfism, it's not uncommon for there to be constriction in the area where the spinal column feeds through, or the spinal cord feeds through the spinal column, and
I mean, it's tiny.
yeah,
Like
it's tiny, and so the smallest
the width of your
of
thumb is
restrictions,
small.
and with with the big old skulls that we have, the opening can be constricted, and so it's not uncommon for there to need to be an opening, which was the issue with my sister, like from the beginning, and but so that's.
I don't know if you ever talked about this, but I knew
haven't.
your sister early after Hurricane Katrina. I got to meet her in those early days, so I don't know that you and I ever said that, but I
We
wanted to just to say
haven't.
that. Yeah, I got to know her a little bit.
Please tell me about that, because she was amazing.
Well, back early after Hurricane Katrina, I was. I was working on a lot of things. I was working in the governor's office. And she was too.
But you were side by side with Barbara.
She was everywhere, and just ended up running into her and the work she was doing, and she was just an amazing human being. So I know we've never shared that, but I wanted to just insert that.
We haven't, yeah.
Insert that.
So Cece, my sister, she was younger than me, and she was an advocate through and through, and we did a lot of advocacy things together, and I didn't find my advocacy wings until she left us, and I have no doubt that her wings helped engineer mine, and so it's really cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, interesting to be here today, thinking back all those years and being with her.
She was on the forefront, man.
She was I'll tell you, she's one of those people that that made you feel like, what excuse do I have here? I mean, she was working harder than everybody else. You know, it was incredible.
I always called her my younger sister.
Yeah.
Because she was younger than me, but she always had so much more giddy up and go.
She was great. Yeah, amazing. Really, a very effective and very influential person here.
One of my favorite memories of her is when we went to protest in 2016 during Trump's coming to the Coliseum or whatever, and we stood on the beach and we protested in the bitter cold. And then we got stuck at Waffle House for 3 hours because we didn't understand that, like, political parades took time.
Yeah.
And that just because they were at the Coliseum at, 7
They shut everything down. Yeah. Yes.
So we were at the Waffle House for hours after. But it was really cool. It really was.
How many waffles did you eat that night?
None, honestly.
How many cups of coffee did you drink?
Probably not. I'm not a big coffee drinker.
But the Waffle House coffee?
You were there for 3 hours.
There.
How many songs?
I probably had one. I literally probably had 1 cup of coffee.
How many songs did you play on the jukebox?
I want you to understand that I was stuck at a Waffle House, and there were 2 people there. 2 kinds of people there. There were me and my sister, and there were the other people
That went to the rally?
that went to the rally.
It wasn't really a melting pot situation, I'm certain.
That's when you should have played the music.
Right.
Oh, I mean, we did.
I mean,
Like, yes, thank you.
Rebel Yell.
What's
That
it
would have
called?
been a good one.
No, what's it called? U-Tunes or iTunes or what?
Touch Tunes.
Touch Tunes. You can do it via your phone where you're like, just control this situation.
So since you were, like, locked in with these people at Waffle House, did you protest there at the Waffle House?
Was,
Yeah, I mean, you had the signs with you, right?
It was literally obvious who was there for who.
Or did
So I
you try to
didn't
strike
have
up
to.
like a cordial conversation with them? Like, so how'd it go for you at the rally?
No, sir.
This was pre-COVID, right? This was pre-COVID.
It was 2016. It was literally 2016. Or or 2015 even, honestly. Yeah, it was at that time. This guy just likes giving me a hard time.
I have this picture
Don't
like
encourage
they're
him.
arguing
Please
with you and
don't
your sister
encourage
just
him.
runs them over.
No, we were literally like, like, is this really what we're having to deal with? And it was, and we did, and she's since passed. Her and my mom moved to California because Mississippi didn't take care of them, and so that's a whole podcast on its own. But nonetheless, I'm good. Like I
You sound like you've been drinking a lot of wine.
I have.
Whose fault is that?
That's all mine. I take full responsibility and credit.
No, it's Felicity's fault.
No, it's not her fault. No, you don't get. No, it's not her fault. You don't get to blame her.
But this is great. This is actually really very good wine, isn't it? I mean,
it is.
let's be honest. It's really tasty.
All right, so the point of my podcast, what can we do as average, everyday friends, co-workers, so on, of humans who have MS? What can we do to better be people to you?
Well, let me say this, and I say this very sincerely. I'm excited to live in the world that is to come because I see the changes that are occurring.
Yeah.
I see that people are becoming more informed, more accepting. I look at my children's generation, and I feel like there might be hope for us.
Yeah.
You know, because I see how open and accepting and understanding that they are compared to what I was when I was that age.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that rather than feeling like people like Annie and I are sort of living with with something that makes us less than.
Sure.
We're increasingly living in a world that has space for the problems we face.
Yeah.
And that gives me great hope because I don't feel like I've always lived in that world. And I'm starting to see it more and more. I mean, look, this is the first time I've ever really talked about this in this way. I mean, I made a couple of Facebook posts during the pandemic to say, and it was never, she and I were talking about this the other night. When I made some Facebook posts during the pandemic to say, I have MS, that's one of the reasons I care about this pandemic. It was never to say I have MS. It was to say I have MS, so I think it's very important that we take this seriously. It was leveraging a second point. I've never had a conversation like this, but we're living in a world now where increasingly where people can have these conversations. They can gain some understanding, and that gives me incredible hope. I love getting old. I can't wait to get older because I feel like the world I'm moving into is better than the one I'm coming from.
Did the vaccinations mess you up or cause any inflammations?
No problems. None at all.
None.
And that was a concern. I mean, that was a concern we had is how will the vaccine activate your immune system and what will happen. And I'm probably the most vaccinated person in the world at this point, but I've actually had my fourth booster or my second booster.
Fourth shot.
I have a fourth shot.
Yeah.
And so I've had that now, but never any issue other than just very baseline, just sort of the normal, sore arms and just a little bit of malaise afterwards. But great, all good. And frankly, had it not been for the vaccine, I would still be hiding in my room at home. Because
What made you decide to break that fourth wall though? Like, because that's a big fourth wall to break because you're the thing with like accepting publicly that you have a condition, so to speak, is that
Felicity, I'm going to do a podcast and you're going to come back and be the co-host with me.
you're accepting.
Okay, deal.
You're the only one in the room that laughs at my facial expressions.
You're accepting.
It would make every podcast I ever do successful.
You're accepting the difference. Swear to God. The male ego is just unbridled. But nonetheless,
I resemble that comment.
I feel it
used
applies
to
to
it.
you too. It applies to you too.
It is.
It just Unless we just answered the question.
How'd you break the fourth wall? That was the question.
Yes, thank you.
You know, to be honest, I'm still
Because
breaking
you did,
it.
like you, but I'm gonna say, like you broke it though, like you came out of the gate. That's kind of how I established my rapport with you. You very much came to say like, this is what I think, and this is why I think it, and I'm not to be swayed. And you consistently came to be with that like expectation that I want everyone to just simply care about other people.
Well, I will tell. Look, I'm going to be very candid about this. I still have a lot of internal struggle with how angry I am at some people over what's happened in the pandemic.
Okay.
I mean, I hold a lot of anger for that. I had. We should probably name names. I'm gonna.
Don't look at her.
That's what
'cause
common
you-
ground
I had
is.
local-
She's like,
Excuse me.
I had elected officials. I had elected officials on the Mississippi Gulf Coast that not only called my board members professionally in my job, but called me and said, "We don't like your advocacy about vaccines and wearing masks and all that kind of. It sends the wrong message." And frankly, that pushed me even farther because I said, "Look, you know, my mom's in a position. If she gets COVID, she may not be with us anymore. You know, that's how bad a shape she's in.
right.
People like Annie and I stand to lose a lot." And the level of selfishness that I saw, the level of, well, if you're worried about it, don't just stay home. You know, we're going to do what we want to do. I don't know that I've ever had less confidence in my fellow man than I did during the pandemic. It's going to take me a while to get back to the point where I probably have some faith in them. But, I think the pandemic was one of those times where there was a clear demarcation line between people that had real health concerns and people that are just like, this is another cold. What am I worried about? And I fell in a place on that line that there was no going back. There was no sort of switching sides for me. And it was a ditch I was willing. There are very few ditches that I want to die in. That was one that I said, I'm going to stand up for this stuff. And I think at least for the small group of people that I probably am friends with on social media, they saw that I did not hold back. I mean, I was very upfront about our positions and said, look, but more than just the personal situation there, I felt like we as a state and as a region were sending a terrible message to the rest of the world. Because the message we were sending essentially was, we don't give two shits enough to go get vaccines, and we're the least vaccinated state in the country. So if you're a company looking to relocate here that is worried about making sure your workforce is healthy and can be productive, we're not there for you. And that bothered me and it bothers me to this day. And I'll never sort of change my position on that. Very disappointed in a lot of our leadership. Incredibly disappointed, and I'm not going to ever let a day go by that I don't let those folks know how disappointed I am in their leadership for what they did. We went through a very serious situation here. There are a lot of people that lost their lives, and it's incredible to me that human life takes a backseat to politics and a political narrative. I mean, it disgusts me in ways that I can't even describe. You probably hear from my tone, but it's disgusting.
When can we expect to see you running for Congress?
He won't.
Probably never.
He won't. I
why
already
not?
asked him this
Come on.
question. He won't.
Asked
it.
I'll tell you, I don't know that my political positions are such that I'd ever be electable where I live today. But I will.
You
But I
know
will
what?
do this.
You would have so many behind you.
I will not be quiet. I'll tell you that. I'm gonna.
You'd make a great congressman.
I'm gonna use my voice.
I mean, we sure as hell don't need Palazzo.
Look.
That's a whole. No, I'm not gonna let him pull you into that because that is a whole conversation. I'm not gonna let him do it.
Look. Suffice it to say.
No,
suffice it to say, our elected leadership needs to do better. They need to do better. When we get to the point where
they can't do better.
These political narratives take when human life and human wellness takes a back seat to the politics of the day. It doesn't matter who's in office. We as a country, as a society, have failed. Bottom line, we have absolutely failed. when we're in a position where politics overtakes considerations for human life.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that with all your grandstanding, which I completely support and am 100% behind, do you think you've done any good? Do you think that anyone in our country who is a policymaker, who can do any of the whatever to actually make a difference?
You know, I've thought a lot about that, and as it relates to elected officials, no. I mean, clearly, the work that I have done on this has not had any impact.
Sure.
But I do know a lot of people who said, you kept on and kept on until I finally went and got that shot. Would they be here today if they had? I don't know. I'll never know. But on the same note, you know, there are people I love that I think I was able to influence in a way that they made a decision to protect themselves, and for me that's probably good enough. But you know, look, there is a reckoning coming in our society. There is our generation is sick of it, and I think that as time goes on, we're going to continue to see this shift, this dialectical shift in our world that continues to move away from people that are very self-focused. And you know, look, we don't have the ability to live in a world anymore that is focused only on self. When we live in a world where a global pandemic can spread throughout the world in a few weeks' time, because of how interconnected we are as human beings, we don't live in a place where you can only focus on yourself anymore. It's just not possible. And I think that what we see, and I mean, look, I hate to say it this way. This sounds awful. But there are a whole lot of people that were on that side of the fence that aren't with us today as a result of how incredibly thoughtless they have been over the past 2 years. And there were some friends. There are friends that I had that I disagreed with vehemently. One of whom, the last conversation that I had with her was such as she's saying, look, you know, you're getting people killed pushing these vaccines, and you know, I'm going to do everything I can to stand against you. And she's no longer with us because she died of COVID. So, you know, I think in some ways,
natural selection.
Stop it.
No, but I mean, look, in some ways, you know, being a
welcome to Comedy Hour.
Don't encourage him. Don't encourage him.
No, but I mean, look, being a citizen of our society today it's earned citizenship, right? You gotta earn it every day. And my hope is, you know, I don't have a crystal ball. My hope is that we're starting to see a shift in our society, and that as we go forward, we're leaving behind something that, you know, our children are going to live fundamentally in a different type of world than we do. I hope.
Am I wrong to say that our political system in the state of Mississippi is a good old boy system that keeps guys like you out?
No, you're not at all. I mean, look,
because if we had more guys like you,
here's the question I would like to pose: were you outside of that notion prior to COVID, and therefore are you now finding yourself more so outside of it?
I would say that, you know, I had become very cynical, and certainly in the years leading up to COVID. You know, look, I worked for Haley Barbour for a long time, for many years after Katrina, and I can honestly say, you know, take politics aside for a second. That was a man that I never sat in a meeting in which the primary question in his mind wasn't what can we do here that will provide the outcomes that we need that will help people in Mississippi. So, you know, I never had any qualms whatsoever about that. The world has changed a lot since those days, and I find myself now in a position where I have some very strong disagreements, especially with people that do currently have power, and you know, and look, I think it's one thing to sort of throw bombs back and forth. I think it's another thing just to have a principled stand to say, does this really make sense? Does it make sense economically? Does it make sense for health and safety of our population? And as long as we're having those conversations and they're not being just sort of put underground, I think we're continuing to make progress. I will let you know in no uncertain terms, though, there are a lot of folks that came after me really hard when I started having those conversations. They didn't like it. And that's so to your question, do we live in that system? Absolutely. Because the minute you stray outside of the narrative that's accepted, they come after you, and I've experienced that.
But that system, it seems like it's a very hard mold to break because of the ingrained ignorance that is with them.
Well, I mean, look,
it's like you're not going to change their minds, but it's going to take generations to come into the fold.
But
well, I will say, you know,
and he's got something to say. And he's got something to say.
This is an interesting perspective, but I will say this: I don't even know in all situations that it's necessarily that you can't change their minds, because I don't know that their minds are actually where they come out publicly.
I agree.
I think a lot of them actually know better, but they also read the polls, and they sort of know what the politics of the day is. You know, I would tell you in not in most cases, but in many cases, I don't know that they look in the mirror at night and say, "I'm real proud of what I'm saying."
No, but they do look in the mirror. They will.
I don't think they do, though.
Hold on.
I don't think they do.
They will look in the mirror, and whenever it comes time to appoint somebody, they're going to appoint somebody that looks like them. They're not going to come out and try to go for people who have come from marginalized communities
I don't think they look in the mirror further than that.
Well,
that's exactly what I'm saying. I mean, I get that. I'm just saying, like,
public politics and public policy is about control, because unless you are in power, you know, there's not much you can do. I mean, what's amazing is, you know, Ralph Nader said the 1960s to the hippies, right? He said, you know, you got to have more than just passion.
I love Ralph
Nader. Because passion in and of itself is great, but unless you're winning elective office and you're able to influence public policy outcomes, passion's not enough. And I think that's the problem. There is a constant battle for control. You know, who holds the purse strings, who's going to make the rules, and that's what we see.
It's pushing passion beyond reality. And I was a big Ralph Nader fan, right? So, like, I graduated in 2000, so I turned 18 in 2000.
Yeah.
So that was my pivotal point, and that's a big time thing, right? Like, and at the time, I couldn't give a shit less about politics. Like, I didn't care about what everybody else was dealing with or any of that. It wasn't until I got to college I cared about that. And so, like, the whole Ralph Nader thing, I really feel like that is where we should be at the root of it all. But we have a long way to go before we can get there.
Well, you know, take a look at our demographics as a society. I mean, we are on. It's hard because we've always sort of lived in the reality we've lived in, right? But we're on this cusp of where the millennial generation is now the largest cohort of the population in the United States.
Ash, we are the millennials.
Right.
Testing 1, 2. We are the millennials.
And so, you know, there was a great study that came.
We are millennials.
Well, here's
all of us. We are all millennials.
No, I'm a millennial.
Here's the truth of the matter.
I'm 82, so I'm borderline. I'm a millennial.
The change occurs when you get economic power, right? And so there was this great study that came out from Goldman Sachs several years ago. And it said by 2025, millennials will spend 75 cents of every dollar spent in the United States. When that happens, you're going to see a power shift, because economic power is real power in society. And so I really think we're sort of sitting on the cusp of this change.
How will their focus shift at that point, though? Like,
Well,
how will their
question.
focus shift versus the previous purchasing powers focus?
Well, you know, look, there are a lot of people sort of betting on this. I mean, there are a lot of entrepreneurs out there that are sort of betting on this. There is no question that we're seeing the push and pull right now of sort of the post World War II generations, the baby boomers, the sort of values that they had, and then what's coming ahead with millennials and Gen Z and even Gen X to some extent. But, you know, we're about to see this amazing shift. I mean, there are 60 some odd million baby boomers that are still in the workforce that are going to be retiring the next 3, 4, 5 years. That's going to be incredible.
Let me ask you this. So this is my vision, and this is a completely I mean, I have education, but this is a non-educational thought. I feel like we are swinging from the industrial age back into the entrepreneurial age.
Sure.
And so I feel like we are coming into this age between tech and like just coming. I feel like we are coming back from we're escaping the Walmart age. We're coming back into like the small business
Right.
owner range, and so I feel like there's a lot of focus on that, and in that sense, like there's a bodega, there's a market, there's this and that, where it's very small market.
Well, I think millennials, Gen Zers, some of the younger Gen Xers, we place a premium on authenticity. I mean, our parents' generation and our grandparents' generations, they were the generations that like covered up all the beautiful ceiling work with drop ceilings so they could save on air conditioning costs, right? I mean, and you think about all the buildings that were built, like the architecture of the 60s and 70s, this very plain, functional. We're starting to see this move away from that. And I don't want to call myself a futurist. I love to read about what is the time ahead, because it's very hopeful. But I really,
this is it. Like, write podcasts. Like, this
look,
is...
no question. I mean, look, the next generation of Mississippians are going to look a lot different than the last generation of Mississippians. And our biggest goal, what I do every day for a living or professional, is how do we get them to stay here and plant their roots here and make their changes here.
Another podcast.
And that's tough.
That's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah,
I'll bring another bottle of wine for that.
People are talking like heavily about, okay, well, the generation that's coming up, they're going to college, they're getting their degree, and they're moving.
Yeah.
They're moving because
it's a great exodus,
reason,
right?
The thing about it is, though, everything, I know that there's like a huge economic boom that's going on here, but they're making it not affordable to even, for people who are from here to even stay here.
That's
you
right.
know, and it's like, okay, so you're going to do one or two things, or you're going to do both. You're going to drive the homeless population up, and then the younger population who are making waves in the economy are not even going to make waves here in South Mississippi. They're going to go somewhere else and do it.
No,
so,
it's absolutely true, yeah.
What's amazing, like I tell people all the time, I mean, we've spent so much money for the last 30 years building roads to get people out of our towns and out of our cities.
Literally, yeah.
And all the cities that are doing really well are figuring out ways to get, millennials and young professionals into their downtown areas. And, look at the old Fourth Ward of Atlanta, which was like the cradle of the civil rights movement, and the incredible changes that have occurred with this incredible new development there. I mean, we're seeing a sea change. I feel like we're sort of on the cusp of this sort of next industrial revolution, and I feel very strongly about it. I hope I'm not wrong.
Do you mean specifically to Biloxi?
Well, I think the world is seeing a change. I mean, I think we are in the midst of an incredible transformation in the world. I think our economy,
I agree, but
by 2030 is going to be so much different. Coast is different.
I think though that I think so, and maybe this is just me trying to make myself feel better about growing up here, but I really feel like we are on the cusp, and I feel like we are growing past the typical coast economics where if we were, like, let's just say, if we were to have a reality show here, like, this stuff would be next level, like, because we would be able to show the growth, the personality, the seafood, the, like, all of those little, like, things on the coast, because the Mississippi coast is not Mississippi.
I think that we're starting to see the beginnings of that. I mean, look, I think that there's no question 10 years from now the coast is going to look fundamentally different than it does today. And,
okay.
But I mean, again, the hope that I have and what gives me really, I don't know, maybe the incentive to keep going is, like when I'm around these young professionals and how they view the world that they want to live in as opposed to the world that they've inherited. I hope they keep their fire. I hope that they keep working. But I'll tell you, we've got great leadership, young leadership. We have great young leadership in this region.
We have really great leadership, but we also have we have great young leadership to lead the way to do big into the industrial world. But we also have great leadership.
Yeah.
Just full stop.
Sure.
We have really great leadership to show us as Mississippi, the 39th of the 40th or whatever, we get to show that we are able to do good stuff. We are able to be good people. And so I think that with things with this and
well, this podcast is a great example.
yeah, a million other things.
10 years ago, there was nothing like this occurring here, right?
Yeah,
and so this is a great example of the way that we're evolving. And if you're not evolving, you're dying. No one's sitting still, right? You're either evolving or you're regressing.
Yeah.
But no one's sitting still.
Right.
And I think that we're starting to see that evolution occur.
So I have really loved this conversation about both MS, but just all things our age and our generation.
All the tangents we've gotten.
Yeah, because, and I feel like that's the point, right? There's more to life than, and that's the point. So, if each of you, I'll give you each a chance to share, what your thoughts are on being a person in Mississippi with MS. What do you want from others? What do you need from others? And what do you want from the future? So I'll start with you, Annie.
Oh,
sorry.
Okay. I guess that's very hard to answer because in my mind, I don't feel like I want or need anything from anybody in the community. Of course I don't. I know. But I feel like one of the major things is if MS aside, any disability, or if somebody decides to open up to you about their condition, no matter what it is, just kind of take it in stride and take their word for it. Don't necessarily start to question them about what they are doing, what they can do better. I will say, coming from a place of concern, or you just feel like you want to help, or you feel like you need to give input, I do understand that. But I think it's one of those things is just believe them. That's one of those things. It's hard to, because if whoever is watching or will watch this, knowing me, you can't see it. I'm sure knowing Ash, you can't see it. And, like I said earlier, with something so simple as, me parking in the cute blue spaces in front of the store and walking in, you have no idea that, I've had a terrible day and my body has completely worn itself out. And I even feel justified right now. I don't use it all the time, but I shouldn't have to say that. I shouldn't have to say, well, no, I don't use it every time. I should use it every single time if I want to. I should not have to feel weird or anything. And, I had someone tell me one day, it looks like you dropped your grandma off and kept her handicap placard. It's no, it's mine. It's not anybody else's. But, I guess if you see someone who could potentially have a disability or anything, you can ask them, hey, do you need any help with something? It could be something so simple, or, I don't know, mind your business. Don't make someone feel, I know she knew it was coming. I don't know why you asked me this. But it's almost like, you don't have to make anyone feel validated, or even less than,
yeah.
I don't need you staring at me because I have this spot and you feel like I shouldn't be here. it doesn't matter. It's
Right.
one of those things. Just have the decency, I don't know, to mind your business. If you see me fall out, I would hope that you would call somebody or, come and help. But other than that, it's just one of those things. It's just like, do I feel like we need anything else from the community? I personally, I don't. I'm pretty sure Asha has a better answer than me.
No, but it's just believe me when I say I need a break, and that's really it.
Right. If I have something going on, if I don't feel like doing anything or what have you, I don't necessarily this is gonna sound terrible. I don't necessarily owe anyone an explanation as to why I cannot do it. I can't do it. I can't do everything, and even with us coming back from the pandemic and all of these events, everybody knows about these events that we have been so accustomed to doing. I've realized that I haven't been in a whole lot, or I've canceled or not shown up, and then I'll show up to one like, well, we haven't seen you in a long time.
Yeah, don't hold it against
Don't hold it against me. Like, I'm tired. And that would be for anybody, even without a disability. It's just one of those things. Just be more compassionate about, people. You have no idea what anybody's struggling with or lack thereof. So they just probably don't want to show up, and that's okay. So I think it's just mainly, I don't know, partially minding your business and having just the human decency to not necessarily put your opinion and your feelings onto someone else. It's like, well, you have no idea what's going on with them, and maybe if they didn't show up to this that they said they would show up to, there could be a multitude of reasons, but at the end of the day, none of them concern you, and if it does, they will probably let you know. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
No, that does make sense.
Rude.
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
Turn my mic off.
You don't have that power. You don't get to turn your mic off. But that's the point, right? Like, to help people understand that, like, this isn't necessarily what you think, and that to admit that I have an issue is hard. Yeah. And so, just to say, like, hey, this is something I'm struggling with, and I want you to understand it and empathize with it is enough. Like,
yeah, it is, and becoming more transparent is something that I've decided to do. Like 7 years ago, it's like, you know what, I'm going to be transparent.
It's hard
because I was silenced for so long, and even whenever you do that because you feel like, okay, well, silence is probably not the best thing, so maybe I should be transparent, and then you're transparent, and it's like,
it's hard though.
It's still just as bad. So it's almost like, you just got to find a balance, and hopefully people will understand at some point in time. So, yay.
Look, I mean, I'll just go in a little bit of a different direction. I agree with everything you said, but what do I want from Mississippi? I want to live in a state that doesn't deny science. I want to live in a state where I have access to all the treatments that could possibly help me. I want to live in a state where people are willing to listen to doctors and medical professionals. I mean, that coming out of the pandemic, that's been the most difficult thing for me. The science denial. Look, the most amazing thing about the times that we live in is the incredible blessings and benefits we have from science and technology and the infrastructure that we have to know. Why in the hell would we not embrace that? That's hard. So, I mean, my biggest thing is, I want my health decision made by physicians, not politicians. I want public policy on health to be made by public health professionals. I want doctors to be able to tell me what treatments I need. If it requires stem cell research, I want that to be open. I mean, those are things that are important to me.
Ash, you're going off the deep end.
That's right. But yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right.
I do agree with the stem cell, though.
I mean, I don't disagree with any of it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
It's tough.
So many
but I think, but on some level, I mean, we have to continue to say, we're not forgotten people in society because we deal with something day to day. That's
COVID,
different.
though, I want to ask you, did COVID make you more aware, more driven, more like?
I think COVID made me open my mouth. I think I was quiet for a long time before, because I didn't, not that I didn't feel strongly about these things, but because I don't feel like there was really much of a platform to discuss it. I think COVID made me stop being quiet about it. You know, and I mean, and have I done any good with it? I don't know. But
you
but
have.
But
have.
I sleep very well at night, which is maybe the most important thing in life, right?
No, you have. You have. You've definitely been bold and outspoken about the differences that awareness can make.
Right.
So that's incredible. Because
Well, you know, look, I mean, Annie and I are young enough that maybe there's a cure to this in our future. I mean, maybe there is.
I'm not for it.
But it doesn't give me a lot of hope when we're coming off 2 years when the best that medical science can provide is denied by 40% of the population. And that scares the hell out of me, because I want to live in a place that's progressive as it relates to
yes.
let's get every drop of the benefit of this science that we can get. I hope and I pray. You know, I mean, look, I worry all the time about my own daughter, and you know, my mom had MS, I have MS. You know, does she wake up at 28 years old and have the experience I have? I hope that she lives in a different world than I do, and that she has access to treatments and access to things that will make it easier for her than it's been for me. You know, look, the way that we continue to march forward. I mean, from the day I got diagnosed to today, it's incredible the advances that have been made, and that's been 14 years. What will like 14 years from now? So we'll see.
What would you say that you would like to see 14 years from now?
Well,
like, what
I think
advancements do you want?
I think that the biggest things for people like my mom who have, you know, my mom was, when my mom became fully disabled, when I say fully disabled, I mean literally bedridden. She was 40 years old, and you know, she was in the prime of her life, and she has missed out on really the second half of her life. She's still living. She's in pretty bad shape, but she's still alive. And you know, my sincere hope is that we find not only ways to treat MS that can be more effective, but also ways to remyelinate nerves. Because part of the problem that you have with MS is once the damage is done, it's very difficult to undo. Almost impossible. So
explain what myelinate means.
Well, so think about the best way to explain it is, you know, if you have an electrical cord that has an insulation on the outside of it that keeps it from, you know, keeps it from sparking out into the air. Your nerves are like that. They have a sheath around them that insulates them and allows them to conduct the signals. And for folks like Annie and I, our immune system, it destroys that. And so it makes our nerves where they don't work. I mean, my mind might tell my leg to pick up and step up a step, but my leg won't respond. And up until now, medical science has not yet created a way, once that nerve is damaged and the myelin, the sheath on that nerve has been eaten away, can't be put back. And so the hope is that at some point in the future, they will create a treatment that will allow that to happen.
Yeah.
Which means that people like my mom could potentially see a reversal of what has occurred. And that's not the case today.
And how you explained it, like the electrical cord and the protective coating. So you know how, like, if we try to fix it, we just wrap electrical tape around it.
Right.
We don't get to wrap electrical tape around it, so now it's constantly like misfiring, and the signals are just completely screwed up. So if they could figure out a way to do that, that'd be great.
And, you know,
just put some electrical
I mean,
tape.
you know, so I mean, money, funding for research, you know, a society that embraces science.
And disabilities.
And gives you know, gives incentives for the economic infrastructure around pharmaceuticals and things to continue to work on creating these look, MS is not going away. It's incredible the number of people that have it. And I feel like the interesting thing about this podcast, there's so many people like Andy and I. I mean, we don't talk a lot about what we have, and I run into people all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody you talk to now,
Yeah.
if you say I have MS, they'll say, I know my mother-in-law has that, or I have a sister, or and so it touches a lot of people. And you look at all the advancements that have been made in other diseases and things. We're kind of in that pot where the treatments that are available to us aren't really much different than they were 20 years ago. I mean, there's some new ones, but you're not seeing an incredible difference in the outcomes to your health. So that level of research and development, I think, is important. And look, I hope, especially for people my kids' age, that they don't have to go through what we've gone through.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That's good stuff. Like I can't. It's hard because I referenced back at the beginning the difference between visible and invisible, and now things are becoming more visible, but they're not, because people are more willing to ignore it, right? Like, they're more willing to say, like, like, that's pseudo, that's not real, or it doesn't matter. Like, there's a lot of, like, misconstruction with it all. So
that's great.
Our society is
it's not a word.
Visual, very,
It's not a
very
real
visual.
word.
Like people only, they can only tangible. I think that's the word I'm looking for.
Misconstrual is the word I made up.
I don't know that one, but I'm gonna stick with tangible.
Because it doesn't exist.
So people are, they see disability as wheelchair, walker, cane, some sort of a medical device.
But even with that, even with that, like, people, if they don't see someone consistent with, like, a cane or consistent with, it's like, you have to understand that disabilities come in phases. And so just because I'm using a cane right now doesn't mean that I'm going to use it in 30 days.
Yeah.
And it also doesn't mean that I don't want to use it in 30 days. Like, I don't want to be restricted.
Yeah,
to that.
none of us would choose this, right?
No.
None of us would
That's
choose
the thing,
this.
like,
Yeah.
nobody's going to choose that. But people think that we want this because it gives us a front place parking seat. Like,
Yeah,
but you
no.
still.
how is that the validity of it all?
And
Like,
I'm just gonna say, cart returns are not that close to
That's
handicap
not-
parking spots, and
No.
just because it's by the front door does not mean that it's easier.
No.
I just want to point that out.
I just want to point that
I
out.
just want to tell the ADA that that's not a thing.
But there's
No,
also
yeah,
no
it's
88 to tell. Like,
No,
it's
that's
just
what you can't talk about
ridiculous.
it. But it's just because you can't see it, or you can't see it or not, it just does not. Everything is different, and
Right.
you can't necessarily bank on, I guess, what you've grown up to. I guess a lot of people have to unlearn what a disability is, more so than anything.
Right.
And that's part of our problem with accepting it as a disability and saying, like, oh, MS is this, MS is that. But it's also part of our, like, struggle, because we know what we're capable of, and we don't want to enlist any other expectation other than what we're actually capable of. So it's complicated as hell.
You know who you are?
You're gonna tell me. It doesn't matter.
You're the person that everybody wants to hang out with at the bar after the conference.
Why? Because I've entirely too much to say.
Because you keep the party going.
I have entirely too much to say.
You're like, conference is over. Taking it to the mini bar. Let's go.
Talking points.
Gotta have those people in your social group, right?
But you also
got
have
to.
the people that tell you that, and you're,
Angela's the leader.
Huh.
I have a question before we sign off for you, Ash.
Yeah.
Do you find, since you're a sommelier, do you find any of these wines helpful when you have inflammations? Any specific wines, reds, wines, Zins?
I don't know if I find them helpful necessarily to my condition, but they're certainly helpful to my mindset.
Okay.
So, I'll just say very quickly, I was a poor kid that grew up in Forest County, Mississippi. I didn't even, the only wine I ever saw was a wine cooler at the local store. So it was very much in later life that I got into wine and went and became a sommelier. But the worst day when you got a couple of good bottles of wine is usually better than some of the really good days when I have. So I'm committed to. Look, I hope when I go from this earth that I go with a glass of wine in my hand.
What if you could find the cure for MS in a wine?
Hey,
look, a concoction of wines.
I will commit that I will do my best to try to continue that research.
I feel like that's your journey.
Yeah. That could be a journey. And I can put my name in.
And Annie's here for it. Like she's
here
is
for
like
each
other right
I'm
here.
she's
Right
like,
here.
I'm giving the stamp.
committing
She's
to
here for
all
it.
of this. I'm committing to this research study.
But thank you, seriously. Thank you for having us. It was a little intimidating to talk about this because I never really have done it before, but I appreciate it very much, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
It's great to have to know someone that sort of experiences the same thing. Look, you can always come over to my house in the summertime when we need to find the air conditioning because I keep it on like 60. So when it's so hot and you just feel it coming on,
here.
we'll go get in the air conditioning.
I'm
So,
still here. I just
I'm
want
doing-
you
She's
lying
like,
here.
"Yeah,
I'm
don't
just
do
like,
Okay. Yes, thank you guys.
Thank you very much.
And I mean, having a platform to talk about it is actually,
Thank you.
MS isn't on platforms for the most part. So I guess Selma Blair kind of pushed that out there.
That's
No.
right.
Okay.
Yeah,
No,
that's right.
but I really thought it was interesting that anybody that I said, hey, you should come, blah, blah, blah. Everyone's like, what is that? Like, they all want to know. Like, they mean well. Like, they want to know what multiple sclerosis is. And they just don't get it. I'm like, this is what I'm doing.
I mean, not honestly, we're still learning.
Well, let me just give a shout out. National MS Society, I think, is a great organization. They do good work. Hey, if you listen to this podcast and you feel you feel something about what you've heard, maybe throw a few bucks to the National MS Society because they work really hard on helping to fund research and things that hopefully will help us one of these days.
Absolutely. I'm excited.
Mitchell, what you got?
It's your show, girl.
Nah, it's your show.
Yeah.
You got to do the
Brandon.
sign off.
Well, I are we good?
You're like,
We're good.
I can't
Everybody
sign
said-
off. I've had 5 glasses of wine.
I don't know how to do goodbye, so it's
Felicity, thank you so much for joining us and being here. I don't know if anybody look. There's Felicity. Woo! She's been keeping those wine glasses full all night.
Keep it full.
Is that that's a good picture? You should be on a wine bottle.
This is Babylon Store in Babel. Highly recommended.
She didn't want to be getting her off like ever.
Look, I'll just give a shout out to Kirby Boatler with Pilar Wine Brokers that represents Babylon Store in Mississippi. Good friend of mine and great wine. Go out and pick one.
Thanks,
Good
Kirby.
stuff.
Yeah, good stuff.
It's a good red blend, yeah.
All right.
All right, we're good. Like, I have absolutely loved this conversation. Sorry.
Hey, I think you loved it the most.
I have. I literally. I will. I was gonna say I could continue this conversation on, but I will continue this conversation on. I'm gonna talk to both of these people about their perspectives on being humans with MS in this day and age. So I'm excited.
Well, thank you very much for what you do. And if you need a new idea for a new podcast, we'll call it A Little Perspective with a Little Wine.
You did put out an awesome spread.
You did.
You got to add that to your resume. That spread was awesome. The grapes and strawberries and cheeses. I was mightily impressed.
Wonderful selection.
I'm proud of it, but that's not going to be on my resume.
I mean, it was
You
top
should.
notch.
People would come for that.
I love y'all. Y'all are good to me.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. Say night.
Thank you.